What's up guys, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here then welcome to our little corner of the internet. Today we're going to be watching a video titled Why Violence Has Erupted in Mexico. I have no idea what we're jumping into here, so let's see what this video is about.
On Sunday, one of the world's most wanted drug traffickers, the Mexican cartel boss known as El Mencho, was killed by Mexican security services in the state of Jalisco. At the time of his death, El Mencho was the most wanted person in Mexico and one of the most wanted in the US, with the US government offering rewards of up to $15 million for information leading to his arrest. El Mencho's death sparked a wave.
I have never, you guys know, I live under a rock. I have never even heard his name. I am completely out of this situation. Okay.
And one of the most wanted in the US, with the US government offering rewards of up to $15 million for information leading to his arrest. El Mencho's death sparked a wave of retaliatory criminal violence across Mexico that has, at the time of writing, spread to at least 6 states, with videos on social media showing heavily armed men torching vehicles across a number of cities. So in this video, we thought we'd try our best to explain why El Mencho's killing has sparked such unrest, how this reflects a deeper change in government policy, and what might happen next. On the night of the 2024 US election, Donald Trump told his supporters that God had saved his life for a reason, alluding to the assassination attempt on his life a few months earlier. In the latest issue of Too Long, we explore how...
Wait, did this happen
Donald Trump
in 2024? Has it been so long? Or is this another situation? Remember the time that he got shot in the on the side of the head? Is this the same situation? Has it been that long? I don't know.
Attempt on his life a few months earlier. In the latest issue of Too Long, we explore how faith-fueled populism, from Donald Trump to Vladimir Putin, has slowly been shaping modern democracy. That's just some of the 72 pages in the magazine, because as always, there's more to Too Long than you'd expect. Purchase your copy by clicking the link in the description. So, to understand why El Mencho's death has triggered such a violent reaction, you need a bit of context. In short, El Mencho was the head of a cartel called the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, otherwise known as CJNG. CJNG aren't that well known internationally, at least relative to the world-renowned Sinaloa cartel, but they are a household name inside Mexico, and CJNG and the Sinaloa cartel are probably the 2 most powerful criminal organizations in Mexico today. This is despite the fact that compared to the Sinaloa cartel, CJNG really haven't been on the scene for very long. CJNG only really rose to prominence in late 2010, after the death of Ignacio Nacho Coronel, a founding member of the Sinaloa cartel, who's widely considered the godfather of Mexico's methamphetamine trade. Nacho's power base was in Jalisco, and his death triggered a splintering of the Sinaloa cartel and its allies in the surrounding areas. One of the groups to emerge from this rubble was CJNG, founded and led by El Mencho. In the period after their emergence, homicides, massacres, and the discoveries of mass graves spiked in Jalisco. CJNG fought brutal wars against at least 2 other big cartels, the Zetas and the Knights Templar, before ultimately establishing themselves as the dominant group in the state, and then expanding rapidly. While their power base is still in the west, around Jalisco, CJNG now maintain a presence in nearly every part of Mexico, except Sinaloa and the so-called Golden Triangle regions, which are still dominated by the Sinaloa cartel. Today, CJNG are renowned as perhaps the most violent and militarized criminal organization in Mexico. They've carried out a number of high-profile attacks and killings in the past decade or so, including against the Mexican state. In April 20...
It's so odd how in Mexico, for example, the cartels hold such a high kind of position in the whole country, and such high impact on the whole country. It's a very, very, very sad.
2015, for instance, the CJNG killed 15 Mexican police officers in an ambush in Jalisco, one of the single deadliest attacks on security forces in modern Mexican history. A month later, Mexican security services launched an operation to capture El Mencho, but things didn't go to plan. El Mencho escaped, and CJNG militants used an RPG to shoot down a military helicopter. The first time that Mexican...
What? 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 So the cartel used the RPG to bring down a military helicopter. I just said that it's crazy how much they can affect the whole country, but this is a whole different ballgame.
Cartel had shot down a military aircraft. Sunday's attempt on El Mencho, however, which was apparently carried out with the help of US intelligence, went a lot smoother. According to Mexico's defense ministry, no Mexican soldiers were killed during the operation, which ended with the deaths of El Mencho and at least 6 other CJNG members. The operation was also symptomatic of a wider change in Mexican government policy. Since taking office in October 2024, Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum has pursued a more muscular security strategy than her predecessor and mentor, Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador, or AMLO, whose doctrine was known as hugs not bullets. Instead, Sheinbaum has prioritized greater federal-state coordination, and coordination between security forces, intelligence agencies, and the justice system. Driving this more coordinated and combative approach is Security and Civilian Protection Secretary Omar Garcia Harfuch, who was previously Security Secretary in Mexico City under Sheinbaum when she was mayor. Provisional data released in January showed a sharp drop in Mexico's homicide rate, dropping 40% from September 2024 to the end of 2025. Good news for Sheinbaum.
That's a huge percentage. I was just thinking about the fact of how difficult it can be to make a situation like this not maybe disappear, but even minimize it, because this has been going on there since I was born, since I can remember. But obviously the scale of things is something that I haven't processed well in my brain.
Original data released in January showed a sharp drop in Mexico's homicide rate, dropping 40% from September 2024 to the end of 2025. Good news for Sheinbaum and Harfuch. However, organised crime is a persistent and deeply entrenched problem, and high-profile political killings during Sheinbaum's term so far have sparked public anger. Additionally, Sheinbaum has faced continued pressure from the Trump administration to do more to crack down on cartels and drug trafficking, with Trump claiming in January that the cartels are running Mexico. Sunday's operation won praise from the US, though, as Deputy Secretary of State Christopher Landau described the killing of El Mencho as a great development for Mexico, the US, Latin America, and the world. The White House said that the US had provided intelligence to support the Mexican government to assist the operation, and commended and thanked the Mexican military for its actions. The elimination of such a notorious cartel leader, one of Mexico's most wanted men, is a good thing in and of itself, and something that Sheinbaum can hail as a victory to both Mexican and American audiences. As the International Crisis Group's David Mora says, this is Sheinbaum signaling to the US that if we keep cooperating, sharing intelligence, Mexico can do it. We don't need US troops on Mexican soil. For context, the Trump administration, as well as tying tariffs to American drug trafficking efforts, has been weighing up a range of other options to target Mexican cartels, even floating unilateral military action on Mexican soil. Sheinbaum has repeatedly warned that unilateral US action is a red line and would be a grave violation of Mexican sovereignty. The successful elimination of El Mencho does, however, highlight the challenging balancing act that Sheinbaum faces. She has previously criticized the so-called kingpin or decapitation strategy of past administrations, as removing the heads of a cartel can trigger widespread violence, both as retaliation against the government and between cartels, as they fracture and fight to fill power vacuums.
But how do you fix a situation like this? I'm confused.
For example, murders, kidnappings, and extortion surged after Felipe Calderon became president in 2006 and launched his decapitation strategy to target top cartel leaders. More recently, the 2024 capture of Sinaloa cartel boss El Mayo triggered a wave of violence in Sinaloa that evolved into a deadly turf war. Whether this new post-operation violence dies out quickly or turns into a more sustained increase in violent insecurity remains to be seen. But this year is a crucial one for Mexico. Not only must it continue keeping an increasingly military-inclined Trump on side, with crucial trade negotiations taking place later this year, but it will also have the eyes of the world on it when it co-hosts the World Cup this summer, with some games taking place in Jalisco State's capital of Guadalajara. The challenge for Sheinbaum and her government is to complement headline successes, like the killing of Mencho, with a comprehensive strategy to undermine the other pillars of cartel power, like the logistics, financial, and political networks. On it when it co-hosts the World Cup this summer.
It co-hosts the World Cup this summer.
Comprehensive strategy to undermine the other pillars of cartel power, like the logistics, financial, and political networks. As we mentioned earlier, the latest issue of our magazine, Too Long, is out very soon. And if you subscribe using code SPRING26, then you can get your first copy for as little as and how a broken...
Well, that was a lot to take in, guys. I mean, the scale of things when it comes to the cartels and all of that in Mexico is just so, like, unimaginable. It's nearly run by cartels in a way, which is just, like, how do you, like, what do you do? How do you come out of that? I have no idea. But please, guys, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for joining me for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please leave a like, subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!